When you think of a dinosaur, what do you think of? Do you think of a stegosaurus swinging its spiked tail? Or of a triceratops with its iconic horns and frill? Do you think of a bellowing behemoth from pop culture chasing down people to eat them? Do you think of the Tyrannosaurus rex and its terrifying bite force? Or do you think of a giant theropod with a high humped back? Because if that's the case, you are thinking of Acrocanthosaurus, the high-spined theropod. Consider this video a teaser for the big Cretaceous project I plan to start working on sometime during the summer. Of course, this is also a double-edged sword because now I can't talk about this animal during that project. I'll worry about that later. It'll be fine. After all, did the dinosaurs worry about the asteroid that wiped them out when they could see it coming months beforehand? No, they worried about it later. So I will worry about what animals I'll cover later as well. It's not like I'm shooting myself in the foot doing this or anything. Not at all. So, today we'll be covering an interesting Cretaceous dinosaur, known only from fragmentary fossils spread across a very wide range. Acrocanthosaurus was a large carnivore which existed in the first half of the Cretaceous during the Aptian and Alban ages. An apex predator, and likely awe-inspiring in life. This is the story of the obscure theropod which ruled long before the Tyrannosaurus rex, and may have even ultimately been dethroned by the tyrannosaurs. In this video, I will be covering the biology of the animal, the discovery of its fossils, the world it lived in, and the animals it would have lived alongside of, and more. I'll basically follow the format I had in the last paleo video, the one about Helicoprion, so if you've seen that, you have an idea of the general outline of this video. If you like paleontology content like this, check out my documentary playlist for more videos on paleontology topics. I've covered a range of topics from Auroran to, again, Helicoprion, to even an ancient Cretaceous-era volcano which is buried in Louisiana. And check out my original audio stories, which are full of dinosaurs and animals from throughout prehistory. I'll put the playlist for those in the description. Okay, let's get to the topic. Acrocanthosaurus atachensis was a large theropod dinosaur which stalked the forests and open plains of the early Cretaceous across North America. It was a large animal, not the largest theropod, but large enough, around 36 to 38 feet in length. Despite not being the largest theropod ever, it was large enough that it would probably look down at a human and probably think, "Hey, you're perfectly bite-sized. Why don't you come on over?" It was almost certainly an apex predator, and it was the largest theropod in its ecosystem. It was a bipedal carnivore, and its name, the high-spined lizard, comes from the neural spines on its vertebrae. Recent studies have shed a lot of light on its anatomy, and we'll cover that in the paleobiology section. For now though, let's get to the initial discovery of the animal. Fossils have been found in a very wide range, mostly in states like Oklahoma, Wyoming, and Texas. Fun fact, the fossil footprints in Texas, which could possibly have, we don't know for sure, but we believe they did, come from Acrocanthosaurus, indicate that it was possibly chasing a theropod, so very cool that the footprints of a hunt in progress fossilized and lasted all the way into today. The fact that those footprints preserved is so humbling, I guess you could say. It preserved that moment. It lets us see a snapshot of that long ago moment when these animals were still alive and walking around. And, those dinosaurs existed long before we did, obviously. They had no idea that one day there'd be humans standing in that exact spot, or humans in general for that matter, or humans writing papers on those tracks, or humans like me making YouTube videos about them. Seeing that long ago moment makes it tangible, and for a moment you can kind of just stop and appreciate it. It's humbling. Anyway, fossils of Acrocanthosaurus are found across the Midwest, and they have also been found as far to the northeast as Maryland. So the genus was very successful and had a large range. Today, though, the genus of Acrocanthosaurus has only one known species, A. atachensis. The animal was named for its high spines, as I mentioned, and the original specimens were found in Oklahoma. Originally discovered in the 1940s, the holotypes were not described until the 1950s. So as you can see from the picture on screen, a lot of these remains of Acrocanthosaurus are fragmentary. Specimen NCSM 14,345 or specimen SMU 74,646 look like the most complete ones, but all are fragmentary in the end. Especially specimen UM 20,796, found in 2008. 13,345 is nicknamed Fran, and this specimen was dated back to the 1990s. There are more specimens which have been found than what I'm showing on screen, such as one from 2012, and a tooth found in Arizona has also been described to Acrocanthosaurus. I believe it was found in 1997. Man, I wish I lived in a state where you could just randomly find a dinosaur tooth lying around. Darn glaciers had to go and destroy them all, though. They destroyed everything from the Mesozoic around here. To date, though, we haven't found a full skeleton of Acrocanthosaurus, and in fact, some fossils found throughout the western United States have since been reclassified to different animals after being originally misidentified as acros. Acrocanthosaurus specimen UM 20,796 consists of 2 vertebrae, partial pubic bones, a femur, a partial fibula, and a few other fragments. And I bring this one up because it represents a juvenile specimen, which you can see on screen. And I wonder how old this individual was, because as we'll cover later on, these guys took a while to fully mature and grow up. Moving on, let's describe and cover the paleobiology of the animal. We know a lot about this animal, so settle in. There's a lot to cover. First off, it had a long and narrow snout like other allosaurids. It also had long ridges that arose from the nasal bones, which ran across either side of the snout from the nostril to the eye. Unlike Allosaurus, though, there was not a prominent crest on the bones right in front of the eye. Acrocanthosaurus had 19 curved and serrated teeth which ran along the upper jaw, but no published tooth count for the lower jaw, exists. The feature Acrocanthosaurus is named after is its row of tall neural spines, which are located along the vertebrae of the neck, back, hips, and upper tail. That's why I actually used the Dominion Giganotosaurus earlier as a stand-in, because of the spines on the back. Same reason I'm using the picture you see on screen now. That's obviously not an Acrocanthosaurus, but, it's got the hump, so, close enough. The lower back of Acrocanthosaurus had attachments for powerful muscles, comparable to the modern bison, which would have formed a thick ridge down its back. Aside from the vertebrate, Acrocanthosaurus has a skeleton typical for allosaurids. It was bipedal, with a long and heavy tail counterbalancing the head and body, which maintained the animal's center of gravity in its hips. Acrocanthosaurus had a very robust hind leg bones, and the animal had 4 digits on each foot, though the first toe was much smaller and did not make much, if any, contact with the ground. Because specimen NCSM 14,345 had its forelimbs and surrounding bones intact, we understand a lot about the forelimb functions. First off, they did not make contact with the ground and were not used for locomotion, like other large non-avian theropods. Because we discovered a specimen with a complete forelimb, we were able to analyze and understand the function and range of the forelimb in Acrocanthosaurus. The shoulder of Acrocanthosaurus was limited in its range of motion compared to that of modern humans. The arm could not swing in a complete circle. The elbow movement was also limited compared to modern humans. The arm could not extend or flex very far at all. We can also see that its bones meant that it could not twist its arm like we can. The wrist was also likely very stiff. We know this because the bones do not fit together precisely, and this suggests that there was a large amount of cartilage in the bones, specifically in the wrist. We also know that the hand digits were able to hyperextend, which meant they could bend backwards until they nearly touched the wrist. The first digit of the hand had the longest claw, and it was fixed so that it curved back towards the underside of the hand. The reason it had such hyperextension abilities is theorized to be for grabbing onto struggling prey without fear of dislocating bones. Acrocanthosaurus is thought to have had a bite force in the interior part of the jaws, of 8,266 newtons and a bite force of 16,894 newtons in the posterior part of the jaws. It is estimated that the species required 12 years to fully grow from hatchling to mature adult, but this number may have actually been as high as 24 years. Wow, I'm not even that old yet. The animal's brain is similar to other allosaurs. Its brain was roughly S-shaped, and from the brain case, we can determine that the animal likely had a very good sense of smell. I mentioned this earlier as well, but as of now, there is only one Acrocanthosaurus species. What era and ages did Acrocanthosaurus live in? What did it eat, and what was the environment like? Let's cover all of that. Well, first, we found its fossils in a wide range. Again, they range across the Midwest and into the eastern United States. Footprints have been preserved in what was once muddy shorelines, so the animal seems to have been able to adapt to living both far inland and in a coastal environment easily. Since the animal was such a large carnivore, it is reasonable and expected for it to have lived in an extensive range with many different environments. Fossils have been found in the Twin Mountains Formation of Oklahoma, and this shows that it may have preferred a coastal environment as, at the time, Oklahoma would have been a floodplain which led out to a shallow sea. So, we've seen some of the environments this animal lived in, but when did it live? It looks like, based on the numbers I've read, that Acrocanthosaurus lived from the late Permian or early Aptian ages until the mid-Alban age of the late early Cretaceous. Some animals which Acrocanthosaurus likely shared its world with included Astrodon, Sauroposeidon, which, goodness gracious, is massive. It definitely earned the name Lizard Earthquake God. Both of these are thought to have possibly been prey to Acrocanthosaurus, but I'd have to see it to believe that it could take down a Sauroposeidon. It's only seen as being a possible prey animal, though juveniles were certainly small enough to be prey to Acrocanthosaurus. Ctenodosaurus and other ornithropods were almost certainly a prey animal, and an animal which Acrocanthosaurus might have had some competition with was the real Jurassic Park raptor, Deinonychus. These likely only provided minimal competition. There's even art of Acrocanthosaurus stealing a kill from Deinonychus on the Wikipedia page, and it's likely that they could have even been prey to the larger carnivore. Ankylosaurs were also present in Acrocanthosaurus' environment. I would imagine these were likely even harder to prey upon than some of the other herbivores due to Ankylosaurs being known for how defensive they were built. There were certainly other animals too, prey and competition. But like I said in the video, there's a volcano in Louisiana. In some cases, we just don't have the fossils to know because not everything fossilizes, and in some cases, we have to reconstruct ecosystems from inferences and based on context we can get from fossils in the same region or around it. So what were the Aptian and Albian stages of the Cretaceous like as a whole? Well, the Cretaceous itself was a very warm period of time on a global scale. The Aptian Age saw one of two oceanic anoxic events which occurred during the Cretaceous, known as the Sally event. The Aptian was introduced to scientific literature in 1840 by a French paleontologist whose name I am not even going to try to pronounce because I would butcher it worse than a helicoprine's buzzsaw jaw could ever butcher a fish. Speaking of topics I've covered, if you've seen the Anatosuchus video, the terms Aptian and Alban ages should sound familiar because I touched on them in that video as well. Kinda funny how we're back here again. We're just in North America this time instead of Africa. Alright, forget 65. Let's make a movie about crashing in the Alban Age and call it 113. Okay, humor aside, let's get serious again, class. So the mid-Aptian extinction event was the biggest thing which seems to have occurred during this age, speaking at a global scale. Unlike the KT extinction around 40 to 45-ish million years later, this one was a minor one, relatively speaking, as far as extinctions go. and Acrocanthosaurus actually survived it. Though as far as minor extinctions go, this was also one of the bigger ones. This Aptian Age extinction event is most readily detected among marine animals rather than terrestrial animals. Volcanism seems to have been a likely cause for this event. Cretaceous volcanoes. You should go check out my video on that, by the way. A noteworthy extinction which occurred around this time was that of... Alright, I'm gonna butcher this, so get ready. A noteworthy extinction which occurred around this time is that Wurosaurus, the last of the stegosaurs, went extinct around this time as well. Moving on, what was the Albian Age like? From what I've read, it doesn't seem like we have a whole lot of rocks from this age of the Cretaceous, which ranged from 113 million years ago to either 110 or 109 million years ago. The Alban is when the forams, an amoeba which still exists today, first appeared in the fossil record. The Albian is also right on the border of the early and the late Cretaceous, and some scientists sometimes lump it into either at times. There's not much info I could find on the Alban as a whole, so it seems like there just aren't a lot of rocks from it we can study. Though we can name a few dinosaurs and other animals from it thanks to fossils, so it's not a blank slate, thankfully. There's more than a paragraph of information about it on Wikipedia, and that's more than the Louisiana volcano I talked about can say, so hey, can't wait for 113, the prequel to 65. Right. Y'all ready to talk evolution? Acrocanthosaurus is part of the Allosaur superfamily. This superfamily is characterized by paired ridges on the nasal bones on the top of the snout, as well as the high and tall neural spines on the neck vertebrae. As I touched on in the section about the discovery of the animal, when it was first discovered, it was known only from fragmentary remains. Why do I always cover the ones which are only fragmentary? Maybe next time I'll get lucky, and we'll have a full skeleton, and that'll make my job so much easier. Aw, man. So, fun fact, tall-spined vertebrate from the early Cretaceous found in England were once thought to be an Acrocanthosaurus or a similar animal. It was even named as a second species of the Acrocanthosaurus genus. Later re-examination placed them in the new genus. Well, you gotta do me like this. Time to butcher another name. Get a helicoprion in here because I need its jaws to shred my pronunciation apart. Beckless Phoenix Altus Phoenix. So looking at the family tree on screen, you can see how Acrocanthosaurs and other theropods are related and what the base they all come from is. There are some notable names here, like Giganotosaurs, Mapusaurs, Tyranotitan, along with Neovenator, Concavinator, and Allosaurus. And they all go back to the original base they evolved from, the Carcharodontosauria. This group as a whole contains some of the largest carnivorous theropods, some of which rivaled the Tyrannosaurus, the king of dinosaurs, as it is affectionately called in my favorite movie ever, in size. Along with the Spinosaurids, I might have a bias towards that one, the Carcharodontosauria were the largest predators in the early and middle Cretaceous throughout the fracturing supercontinent Gondwana. Acrocanthosaurus is generally accepted to have existed in the range of time between 125 and 100 million years ago. It was only a few years after its apparent vanishing, as far as geologic time goes, that the western interior seaway would cut North America in half for the rest of the Cretaceous. One theory for the animal's extinction is an interesting one. Some have theorized that the rise of the early Tyrannosaur family could have been responsible for Acrocanthosaurus extinction. It's not inherently clear, but the clade is associated with being the final nail in the coffin for the Allosaur family, so it's not a stretch. Now, I could not find much information on how Acrocanthosaurus went extinct, But a friend of mine came in for the save. This is his favorite dinosaur, and I didn't know squat about it before starting the research for this. So, Cobalt, thank you. You are the best. You really did come in with the save on this one. As I mentioned, early tyrannosaurs are thought to have been the cause of not only the extinction of Acrocanthosaurus, but of allosaurids in North America as a whole. The way he explained it is that allosaurids, which, as I've covered, Acrocanthosaurus falls into the category of, were simply usurped and replaced by the early tyrannosaurids like Lithronax, which possibly existed during the niche changeover. And there's a few reasons why this might have occurred. They might have just been better adapted for the environment. Tyrannosaurs are also thought to have been more social animals due to being found in groups, and due to a few other things on their fossils indicating behavior, most of which we don't see in the fossils of allosaurids. Allosaurids are often found in groups in predator traps, like tar pits where they go to scavenge and can't get out. Think of that one scene from Walking with Dinosaurs, Allosaurus, for what I'm talking about here. Tyrannosaurs simply sound like they were more successful and better adapted as the late Cretaceous made the changeover to the late Cretaceous. Ultimately, we don't know why Acrocanthosaurus went extinct, we can only infer, and this is one of several possible explanations that we have right now. With the Western Interior Seaway playing a factor by cutting North America in half, new animals adapting and becoming more successful than the ones previously existing, and better and more social carnivores evolving and outcompeting with Acrocanthosaurus, it's kinda all combined in the genus not being able to keep up, basically. Unfortunately, we have to infer a lot. And it all comes down to those pesky glaciers again. The Ice Age glaciers wiped out most of the Mesozoic fossils in the Midwest United States. It wasn't just in my state, it happened in a lot of states. So we don't know, and we will never know for sure what the cause of their ultimate extinction was. But the fact that allosaurids vanished in North America, they did not vanish everywhere, mind you, but they did in North America, as tyrannosaurs appeared, certainly makes the idea a compelling one. So, I've now used up another Cretaceous topic instead of saving it for the big documentary. I really did. I did it now. I love making my job harder. Maybe it's because I'm excited for 65 that I wanted to talk more about the Cretaceous. Or maybe it's just because I love dinosaurs and prehistory. Yeah, it's definitely that one. Okay, jokes aside, I love anything prehistory related, and I didn't know much about Acrocanthosaurus, so this was a ton of fun to research. And like I said at the beginning, consider this kind of a teaser for what's to come when I do make that big Cretaceous project, which, oh boy, I had no idea on a release window for that, because that's probably going to take me a few months, like the Loch Ness Monster one did. But you all seem to enjoy these paleo videos a ton, too. Y'all really loved the volcano one, which is just a fun bonus on top of learning all about these fascinating animals and topics. My dog has finally interrupted me in something that's not a Five Nights at Freddy's video. Dog, he really did it. He finally got into a video that's not Five Nights at Freddy's on here. Anyway, I am happy to teach you all about these animals, and this animal was incredibly interesting. Now, if you like dinosaurs, go listen to my original narrated stories. The dinosaur on screen now, because like I said on the text earlier, there's not really much art of Acrocanthosaurus, is from my original stories. The narrated stories are read from my upcoming novel and are full of dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals. I put a ton of work into them, and I'd love feedback on my readings of portions of the rough drafts before it releases, hopefully later on this year. Also, go check out my other paleo documentaries. I've covered various animals like Auroran and other related hominids, Anatosuchus and other prehistoric crocodiles, and Helicoprion as well as the video I've mentioned about a volcano buried in Louisiana from the Cretaceous era. So I've covered a lot, and I will be covering more. There are plenty more animals I want to talk about, including Pyroraptor, Dunkleosteus, and obviously the 60 various animals I'll be covering in the Big Cretaceous project, whichever they end up being. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll go check out some of my other content. Acrocanthosaurus was, again, just a really interesting animal. I honestly wish that there was more art and pictures to use in this video, but there was not a whole, so I used a lot of similar looking dinosaurs. And I use the term similar very loosely, but nonetheless, I really am happy having taken the time to learn about this theropod. I'm sure it would have been awe-inspiring in life to see, and learning how it worked as an animal was very interesting. And you all know I love theorizing on how these animals might have interacted with each other, and this was no exception. So I'll leave this one off here. I hope you enjoyed and have a good one, everyone. Also, as I hinted earlier by showing the Wikipedia article, in the next paleo video, we are going to be talking about the Pyroraptor, the fire thief dromaeosaur. But before that, we are going to be talking about ships which vanished out at sea. I've already got the script written for that video and ready to be recorded, and hopefully that will be out in just a few days. I'm hoping to record it the day this is uploaded. So there are lots of interesting topics to learn about coming up, and I hope to see you there for them both. In the meantime, go check out some of the other videos I've done. Again, my educational documentaries cover a lot of topics, like the history of cryptids, unsolved historical mysteries, and I narrate my own original stories read from my upcoming novel. If you like dinosaurs, you might be interested in those. I also make gaming videos as a more fun and relaxed type of video in between these bigger research and editing heavy projects. So I'm sure you'll find something that you're interested in. No matter what the video is, I put a lot of work into each one, and I want to make them all the best they can be. Like and subscribe if you want to see more paleo videos, and I'll see you in the next one about the Pyroraptor. Until then, again, have a good one, everyone, and thank you for watching.